You know, they say the stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. And people have seen strange lights from Lubbock to Marfa. But to see some real aliens, you don't got to look no further than the headlights in your rearview mirror. Something just went bump in the night. What's going on, party people? Robert Jenkins here, coming to you live from the seat perilous as usual. I want to say greetings and welcome to this 10th episode of the North Star podcast. I'm slacking and lagging a little bit behind this time, mainly because I've been doing a lot of traveling, so I'm playing catch up. That poem, that little piece of, I wouldn't call it a poem, that little piece of doggerel that I started the show off with, The Stars at Night, big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. I was referring to aliens, of course, UFO type things. When I said people have seen strange lights from Lubbock to Marfa. Lubbock is my hometown. There's a thing called the Lubbock Lights. But you notice the next verse I said you ain't gotta look no further than your rearview mirror at night. And what I'm alluding to is an adventure that I had down deep in the heart of Texas. I recently traveled down to Bryan College Station area, which is essentially where much of my the Jenkins clan hails from. It's kind of like central Texas, east of Austin, northeast of Austin. So, of course, I flew in from Baltimore Washington International Airport down to Austin because that was the biggest city nearby. And Austin, just so you know, if you don't know, is a sanctuary city. It's what they call a sanctuary city. And that's a city that will not, that welcomes illegal aliens, will not deport them, will not make any effort to curb the immigration of these aliens, or the influx of these aliens. And so when I'm talking about aliens in that poem, I'm referring to illegal aliens. And I use that term. Some people say it's ugly, but it's not ugly. It's a legal term. It's how you describe someone who is illegally residing in a country. They're foreign aliens. You've heard of the Alien and Sedition Act. It's a legal term, and it's also an accurate term. And it's inaccurate to call somebody who is in a country illegally an immigrant, because an immigrant is another legal term that means you have fulfilled the legal requirements to enter and live in a country. So you can't be an illegal immigrant, which is what they try to tell us most of the times. And as far as I know, an illegal immigrant is a non sequitur. It's a nonsense term, and it's like saying somebody is a morbidly obese fit person. You know what I'm saying? If you're morbidly obese, you can't be fit. If you are illegal, you can't be an immigrant. So I don't use that term to be ugly. I use it to be accurate. So this is the adventure that I had. I flew into Austin Bergstrom International Airport. Got there. I flew right after work, so I got in late, and I guess I got there around 10 something. By 11 o'clock, by the time I actually got off the plane, got my rental car and stuff. Now, y'all know how you're kind of unfamiliar with the city, and you take off and go in the wrong direction. You don't have your TomTom or your Google Maps or whatever, and realize you shortly down the road, oh man, I should have made a left. I made a right coming out of the airport. I should have made a left. I knew my hotel was close to the airport, but I made a right. I got turned around somewhere. So it's now getting close to midnight. By the time I realized my mistake and drive all the way back the way I just came, I sure enough realized that, there's my hotel right up the road there. I'm on this access road after driving quite a bit, a little confusing freeways in Austin. And I see my hotel off to the side. I stop at this red light. I'm on a frontage road or an access road. I've got to cross a bridge. My hotel is over to the left about 150 yards. Now, just to fully set the scene, it is pitch black. It is late at night. I'm the only car on the highway that I see moving. Everything is dead and quiet. And as I'm looking at my hotel off to the left, a car pulls up behind me. I see some headlights pull up behind me. Okay, well, great. I'm still looking off to the left, looking at my hotel, scoping out, thinking I'm hungry and should I stop at that Denny's right next door? Hadn't eaten all day. And all of a sudden, while I'm lost in thought, waiting on the light, guess what happens? Boom! The vehicle behind me hits me. Now, the first thing that went through my mind was that this was a bump and rob. Y'all have heard of that? The bump and rob, where they bump you slightly, not enough to do any damage, and then when you get out the car, they rob you. Well, that's what I thought of. Now, it just so happens that I had taken some firearms with me to Texas. One of the objects that I had for that trip was to go to the range with some of my family members and just have a good time and enjoy ourselves. So, and now before I even flew down to Texas, my jack was hunching me. Y'all ever heard that term? My jack was hunching me. That's a Jenkins clan term. It means I had a hunch that something bad was going to happen. And I had already made up my mind that when I got down to Texas and got off the airplane, got out to the rental car, the first thing I was going to do is pull over somewhere and take out my 45. I got a Glock 30. No, in this case, I think I had my Springfield XDS 45 short barrel. And in Texas, you don't even have to have a license or anything for certain things. So you can have a firearm in your vehicle, a pistol in your vehicle concealed, as long as you don't do anything illegal with it and as long as it's concealed, as long as you don't take it out of the vehicle. So that was my plan, was to get off the plane, park somewhere real quick, get my 45 out and put it in the console. But I was so tired, and I knew I was only 2 or 3 miles from the hotel. Come to find out, I was 20 or 30 miles from the hotel after I finished making that round trip. So these guys bump into me, and I immediately thought, oh man, this is a bump and rob, because it's pitch black. We are the only 2 vehicles on the highway anywhere to be seen. There are no other headlights. And that's why I thought it was a bump and rob, because I can't understand, how did somebody hit you in the middle of nowhere when it's only you 2 guys at the light? How you hit me? You know what I'm saying? How? So they bump into me. I kick myself and curse myself. Idiot. Don't have my 45 on me. Had a plan to keep it on me at all times after I got out of the airport. Didn't have it. I get out the car reluctantly. Looking, trying to see who they don't get out the car immediately. So I'm like, oh, it's getting suspicious, and it's getting funny feeling now, getting awkward feeling. They finally get out. It's 2 illegal aliens. I can tell by the lights, by their headlights reflecting and my tail lights, they're drunk or high and or both, because they got glassy eyes, and I think it was drugs because I didn't smell any alcohol, but they definitely had glassy eyes. So I'm certain if I was a betting man, I'd bet some ammo or something that they were under the influence of something. So I immediately did not like the situation. So I'm already outnumbered. There's 2 guys against me, and I'm older now than I used to be. I never was Billy Bad Butt, but I was pretty capable of handling myself. Still am, I would think. But it's difficult for any one man to defend himself against 2 people. So I initially immediately said, well, hey guys, let's go over here. And they don't speak English. Okay. So I'm trying to recall my rusty, used to be a Spanish linguist, slow, stammering, yammering Espanol. I'm telling these guys, let's go over here. And I finally get through to them, go over there. They think I don't speak Spanish good or whatever, so they want to call somebody else to speak English with. So I called the person to speak English, and she was mad at me. It was one of their wives probably. She's mad at me, giving me an attitude on the phone. I'm like, dude, your husband or whoever this is just hit me. Why are you cussing me out? So finally, I just hung up and gave him the phone back here, whatever. And then I said, podemos hablar en español? Can we speak in Spanish? And she was like, yeah, oh, you can speak Spanish? I was like, yeah, that's why I can speak Spanish. So we start having this conversation in Spanish, and the guys we're under the lights, under the loading dock at the hotel, or the carport at the hotel out front, where there's lights and cameras and people inside. And after about, 10 minutes of gesticulating and talking in Spanish, and I'm upset because they've hit me. How do you hit me in the middle of the night when there's nobody else around? There's literally not another car on the road. Finally, they're wanting to pay. They're like, well, how much? ¿Cuánto dinero? ¿Cuánto necesitas por eso? I'm like, hey, I don't need anything for that. I don't want your money. I want your information. Do you have a driver's license? No. And I asked the one guy, I said, well, what's your name? ¿Cuál es su nombre? And he said, Jose. Right there, I knew he was lying, because the way he laughed and thought about it for a second. Jose. You lying. You ain't got no ID. You ain't got no driver's license. You got no paper with your name and address on it. Okay. And I said, you know what? I don't want nothing, man. Just forget it. So they left. I left too with them, even though that was my hotel, because I didn't want them to realize that was my hotel. So I left and drove around the block a little bit and came back. And I immediately called Thrifty Rental Car. Yeah, I was going with Thrifty. And they took a little report. I let them know what happened. There was very little damage. And And then, I kind of thought that was it. So I kind of went on about my business. Now, later, when I returned the car after several days, after going shooting and going to the range and Brian and all that stuff, I looked in the car and I realized there's a sticker in the windshield of the car that says this car will be checked. And I did recall that when I left with the vehicle that night, that first night, that I think it was a Thursday night, they checked that car with a fine-tooth comb, the exterior. And when I brought it back, the little damage that the guy did when he hit me was so tiny. All it was, you have those on your license plate. You have those little hex bolts that hold your license plate on. He left an indentation of one of those on the back bumper, and it's a black car, so you could barely see it. Well, lo and behold, these guys inspected that car with a fine-tooth comb again, like a military white glove inspection when I brought it back. And I started realizing, putting two and two together, So, and when he saw that little indentation, I told him, I made a report about that Thursday night when I got in about 12 o'clock. Illegal alien hit me from behind. It was two drunk or high dudes. They didn't have any documentation, any identification whatsoever. They were trying to offer me. I told him the whole story. And he said, "Who'd you call?" I said, "I called roadside assistance, thrifty roadside assistance, and they took a report and blah, blah, blah." Now, this was a while ago. This was about 2 weeks ago. So I haven't heard anything from them. But as I've had a chance to think about it, I realized that the only place I've ever seen a rental car where they have a sticker in there that says the outside of this car is going to be checked, and they do a super thorough job of checking it, is Austin. And I started realizing and putting two and two together. I bet you that's because they know they're a sanctuary city, and that's one of the things that has spiked since the population of illegal aliens has grown over the years. They're getting a lot of high drunk people running over people's cars and tearing up their vehicles. And of course, they're building that. If that is the case, they are building that the cost of repairing those vehicles into the rental fee, on top of the cost that was already there to keep them up. So that's one way that we're paying for it. Now, I did a little bit of research online, and there was a report called "The Fiscal Burden of Illegal Immigration on Texans," and according to that report, which came out in 2014, it's the most recent one I could find. I'm saying that there are 1.8 million illegal aliens in Texas, and the economic burden that they impose on Texas is $12.1 billion. So $12.1 billion. But something that I found very interesting is that other number, that 1.8 million illegal aliens in Texas as of 2014. Now, I have long known this, and if you don't, I'll pull your coattail to it. There is a Democrat Party strategy to make Texas a blue state. Texas is currently, and has been since about 94, has been a red state or conservative state. And the Democrats, starting with their base in Austin, Texas, which is heavily Democratic. It's not even really much like the rest of Texas if you go there, and it's cool. It's not, I got nothing against the city necessarily, but it's just, you can tell it's different from the rest of Texas. They have had a project called Project Blue State, or this case, it was called Texas Democrats Blue Plan, and they want to turn Texas blue. And one of the ways that they're doing that is that they are encouraging places like Austin and perhaps even Houston and other big cities to allow unlimited immigration. So the thing that I found very interesting, and I'm sure it was just a coinky-dink, was that according to that report, the fiscal burden of illegal immigration on Texas, there has been 1.8 million illegal immigrants or illegal aliens in Texas since 2014, at last count in 2014. Well, according to this blue state, the Texas Democrats blue plan, right off of their website, it says between 2014 and 2018, the Texas voter rolls grew by 1.8 million voters. Wow. So now you start understanding as why they want to have all these initiatives where you don't have to have a driver's license to vote. And they try to act like we boo-boo the fool or something, and we don't understand that it's aimed at Hispanics, aimed at making illegal aliens voters. And they try to say, it's because the racist history of voting in the United States, having a driver's license to vote imposes undue burdens on black people. No, it don't. I don't know a single black person. I take that back. I know one single black person who doesn't actually have government ID, driver's license or ID of some sort. Even the most destitute poor, starving black people in the inner city under the most horrendous conditions have ID, because usually they get some form of government assistance, even if they are in those dire straits. So you have to have identification to get those that assistance. So you putting two and two together and using your supermarket sense, your God-given common sense, they're not trying to target help black people vote by saying that you can now vote without having a driver's license or some form of state issued identification. What they're doing is allowing illegal aliens to vote. And it's a coincidence that the illegal aliens, there are 1.8 million illegal aliens in Texas, and 1.8 million voters have the voter rolls have grown by 1.8 million. Yeah. It's a coincidence. And the funny thing is this, man, I'm not really, I'm a live and let live type of guy. So I don't really care about the illegal aliens as people being here. Honestly, it doesn't bother me too much. But what bothers me is the fact that they take some time to assimilate. They are alien. That's why they call them illegal aliens. They come from a foreign culture. They have a foreign concept of how life should be. They have different ideals on marriage and dating and sex and government assistance and what a man should do and what a woman should do. They have their culture is different, and that's why they're described as aliens, because they are foreign to our way of life. And the thing that really gets me about it, and it's not, like I said, it has nothing to do with race. It has nothing. It's the impact on real regular people's lives. Imagine if that accident had been serious. Imagine if I had been hurt. These fools don't have no insurance. They got nothing. What if I had to pay for that car, which I don't know if I will, because they just haven't contacted me yet. I'm still kind of halfway in the back of my mind expecting a phone call or an email. They got all my information. Now, I got to bear the burden of that because he was high and drunk and shouldn't even been here. What if they had killed somebody, killed one of my family members? That always happens. A drunk illegal alien runs over somebody. In fact, I've had a police officer from Texas explain to me that his police chief basically briefed them one time that if you run upon an illegal alien that is drunk and they've been fighting and cutting each other, getting in fights, all brutal assault and stuff like that, well, just take them to jail, put them in the tank, let them sleep it off. He said, we can't do nothing with him because we don't even know who these guys are. He doesn't have a name, his fingerprints ain't in the system. There's nothing on him. We don't know anything about him. So we can't, and we don't have the space to keep him. And if I call ICE, they don't come get him. So he said, if we keep him, all we're doing is overloading our system. So just let them sleep it off. If they ain't killed nobody, anything short of murder, just let them sleep it off and let them go in the morning. Give them a summons to appear in court. They're not going to come, so don't worry about it. Okay. But here's the thing. What happens when you do? If he does kill somebody, what are you going to do then? I mean, you still don't even know who he is. What if he happens to get out on bail, he's outie, and you can get out on bail, I think, for, depending on what the circumstances are. So he's just outie. So I've thought about it some and realized that when you are an illegal alien like that, you are, for all intents and purposes, you are so far below the law that you are actually above the law. And that's the problem I have with it. Now, I think personally that they should reform some of our immigration laws in this information age with all this internet and connectivity and stuff that we got. All these systems watching, scanning, tracking, traces, and spying on us. There surely should be a way to do background checks on these people and speed up that immigration process. And if you don't have a criminal record, and if you're healthy, and if you have a history, of working and being a productive citizen, I think they should let you come on in. And I think you should pay a little fee, a couple $1,000 sounds about right. $1,500 for the background check and all that, and a medical exam. I think you should take a test, take an oath, to take some sort of oath or something, maybe. So, the same stuff we used to do. I think you should probably do that, but I think, in other words, they could fast track the process. And the reason I say that, I've got my family, my wife is from Panama. And so a lot of her family came over, of course, from Panama. And one person in particular that I know of was telling me that it took her, I think she said, 13 or 15 years to get her citizenship. I'm like, why does it take that much? And thousands and thousands of dollars, I think she said. I'm like, why does it take that long? Dude, we live in the information age. You should be able to go online. Looking at your consular matricular number or your cedula number or whatever else they call it over in your home country. you don't have a criminal record and you have at least a high school education. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Health record looks clean. We also did some preliminary screenings for tuberculosis and things like that. You're clean. You're good. You pay me $1,500. Get your fingerprints on file and whatever, and boom. Take this test. If you pass it, welcome to the United States. How long should that take? 6 months? So I do think they need to get people over here, productive people who want to be citizens. And I think they should fast track the process or, streamline the process. But I don't think they'll do that because that goes against, wealthy people, wealthy corporations and stuff want free labor, cheap labor, and Democrats want voters. So, you got two powerful factions, or basically conservative and Democrat, or conservative and liberal, that are working hand in hand to prevent any kind of meaningful reform to the system. So that's why I don't think it'll happen. But anyway, those were my adventures deep in the heart of Texas. I guess I wanted to kind of mention too, one of the things I did down in Texas, one of the reasons I went was to learn a little bit more about my family. So I'm something of a wannabe sort of kind of family historian. And as a videographer, one of the things I like to do is catch what I call family history portraits, or oral histories, video portraits. I try to get videos of people telling about their personal history and try to compile it into things and put it on the website. I'll put a link down to an oral history I did years ago, no video, but just an oral history that I did with my grandfather. And he was the reason that I went down to Bryan this time. So when he was in this oral history that I did with him, he was saying that he actually was born and raised in Clay Station, Texas, down in, what's the county? I forget the county. It'll come to me later on. And he was telling me about his life as growing up as a boy, picking cotton, being a farm laborer, working chopper, and later as a mechanic, then moving out to West Texas, out to Lubbock County, from Bryan, or from Clay Station, really. Clay and Independence, two small towns near each other down there in Central Texas. And he moved up in search of work, and they heard that the cotton picking was good out in West Texas, so they went up there to pick cotton. And then my whole life that I knew him, he was a mechanic. He was a master mechanic, could fix anything. But when I looked on a map, I couldn't find Clay Station. I know for a fact he said Clay Station, but I looked on a map, I could never find it. Well, recently I did find it. It's just called Clay, Texas, and it's really just nothing. It's a ghost town. It doesn't really exist anymore. It exists on a map, but I mean, the place that we actually went to, I got my second cousin Eugene, and we actually went out. He was familiar with the area because he lives there in Bryan. So we went out and did a little reconnaissance, made a little survey of the area, found a couple of people that gave us some pretty valuable information that I can now kind of expand my search with, and also came upon the fact that there's a Facebook page, the Jenkins family Facebook page, that I had no idea existed, from those very Jenkinses that I was looking for down in Clay, Texas. So needless to say, that trip I thought was very fruitful, other than the the close encounter of the strange kind that I had, really close encounter of the frustrating kind that I had. That was a very productive trip as far as finding out something about my family. Another thing that, another fruitful part of that trip was the fact that I was able to go to the range with my cousin. He and I are both men of the same mindset. And so, of course, we always have a good time when we hang out. We just don't get to hang out much because we're so far apart. So he and I went out to this little country range out in the middle of nowhere. Man, we had a good time. We fired off several hundred rounds and several different types of weapons. We weren't really training or anything. This time around, we were sighting some weapons in. So got my AR-15 hitting right the way I wanted to hit, and got the red dot on it looking, doing what I needed to do. And so, overall, it was just I think it was a good trip. Something interesting about the whole incident with the illegal alien, the car accident. This is a failure on my part. Before I went at work that day, before I caught my flight, I thought that, man, I think I should fast before I go on this trip. And I don't know where that came from, because I was starving already. And I was like, I should fast before I go on this trip. So I fasted. I said, and something told me in my mind, you should fast until dark, till after dark when you get there. When you could eat when you get there, but fast from now to then. And I did not, unfortunately, my willpower failed me. I hadn't eaten, and it was an unexpected fast. I hadn't planned to do that. Normally, I can fast pretty well. I fasted for up to 3 days. So even though I made up my mind to do it, I failed in that fast, and I ate before I left some snacks, like some sunflower seeds or something, granola and stuff like that, and some stuff. I think I had a Coke or something on the flight. But I failed in that fast, and I feel deep down inside that may have contributed to the fact that there were some less than perfect aspects of that trip. Nonetheless, I do thank God for, allowing things to not be serious, to allowing that situation not to be a bump and rob, allowing it not to be a serious traffic accident, and really for allowing me to even take a good lesson from it and have be able to turn it into a podcast episode. So I don't want to belabor the point much more, except to say that, I think that when it comes to illegal aliens and unlimited illegal entry of people into this country, your heart wants to let people in because they're just looking for a better life. Most of them are, some of them are, many of them are. But at the same time, you can't tackle a situation like that with your heart. You have to tackle it with your mind. Compassion, yes, but it's got to be a logical way to do it. And because you realize that the direct analogy to allowing unlimited immigration into this country, or unlimited influx of illegal people into this country, the direct consequence, or the direct analogy rather, of that is if you have a house and you work and your family, I got a wife and 2 children. We work. What if we had just allowed, another person to come live with us and not work and not pay anything? Now keep in mind, they're paying for their food and stuff like that, but they're using my utilities. They're putting wear and tear on my house, but they ain't paying nothing. But they make money. They do work and they make money, and they make money tax free, and they don't pay me nothing. And then what if I allow another person to come live with me and do that? And another person. What if I got 3 extra people in my household doing that? Space is cramped. There's space is at a premium. The house is getting worn down because there's way too many people in it, and I'm steadily going in the hole because they don't pay any money back into my system. Well, that's a direct analogy for allowing undocumented people to illegally enter this country and remain. And then whatever they do, they cost a tax burden on the system, but they don't put taxes back into it. By and large, they don't. Like I said, that one report said that Texas is penalized $12.1 billion every year because of the costs associated with having illegal aliens, 1.8 million illegal aliens in the country. So it's not that, and this is the thing, a lot of these liberals and leftists, and those are 2 different things, I guess. But a lot of them will call you a racist and a this and a that, and they don't simply understand that I'm not even thinking about the race of these people. I could care less. I speak Spanish. I admire the many parts of the culture. If you admire the culture, of course you're going to admire the people. And I've seen many of these people from Guatemala, Mexico, and Honduras that are illegal, but nonetheless they are hardworking. So it's not anything about the people. It's a common sense non-starter. It's just a non-starter if they're not going to be paying their fair share. And here's the other thing. People say, well, we're a nation of immigrants. Yeah, but there's a huge difference. Yes, we were a nation of immigrants. We were built by immigration. But the key difference between all of our history up until now and starting in about the 1960s, the type of immigration that we've seen since about the 60s, is that there was no welfare system up until the 60s. So when you had aliens or immigrants coming over, whether they were illegal aliens or legal immigrants, these people were coming over and they had to get a job and get to work and pay taxes and get to getting, just like everybody. They had to get up, get out, and get something. They didn't let the days of their life pass by, like Goody Mob say. So that's a key difference. There was no social security. There was no social safety net. There wasn't no welfare programs and SNAP and WIC to come over and jump on. You had to come over and start working. And that's why people came, because the people that came were hard workers who knew, I'm coming from a place that has all kind of restrictions on my freedom and my individual liberty. And that's one of the reasons I'm poor. But I will go over to these United States, and that's what they used to be called, these United States, because we were separate. We're not one entity. I'm going to go over to these United States where they leave you alone and let you make your money and live your life. And I'm going to pull myself and my family up by our bootstraps. That's the type of immigration we used to have. Not people who come over and know they can immediately get on welfare, SNAP, WIC, free medical care, emergency room access, and everything else. And to the tune of $12.1 billion, which is something like $2,000 for every Texan. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about race or anything like that. It's about common sense. And like I said, I think it's a problem we can solve, except for the fact that I think there are people out there who don't want to solve it. All they want to do is call people who don't like what they have to say racists and xenophobes and sneak in 2 million additional voters so that they can maintain power. And that's the Democrat Party. So, and for black people out there, I just want you to know too that one of the perils of immigration for us is that blacks and Hispanics occupy, in many cases, the same socioeconomic rung. And so with the more illegal aliens that come in, the more competition there will be for jobs on a certain level. And those type of jobs that many of us used to go out for and used to be able to get and try to pull ourselves up. Well, those jobs are going to be under more and more competitive stress, or stress from competition. It's going to be harder and harder to get those jobs. And the way wages work, the more people you have competing for a set amount of jobs, the less those jobs pay. So they drive wages down and they make those jobs harder to find. So even though you may feel in your heart you want people to come over and be able to come over and get a piece of the pie, realize that in this case they actually are, or actually may be, taking your piece of the pie. And like I said, that's just not a tenable situation. And that has nothing to do with racism, has nothing to do with xenophobia. Love how the left love to trot out all these terms. Half of them probably don't even know what they mean. Calling it xenophobia. Every human is xenophobic to some extent. You know what I'm saying? The fear of the other, fear of the stranger. That's because when the stranger is too strange, they don't fit in right. It is weird. That's where xenophobia comes from. But that doesn't mean you're a xenophobic person just because you see, using common sense and everyday supermarket sense and logic, that you cannot sustain 2 million illegal aliens in one state and steadily growing. That's one of the things I noticed too. I'm trying to close up here, but I just thought of something else. One of the things I noticed is that when I went to Bryan, Texas, when I was growing up, Bryan, Texas, where my grandma's from, my grandpa's from, all of the big portion of the Jenkins clan is from Bryan, Texas. And back in the 80s, when I used to stay with my grandma, I don't recall seeing any or very many Hispanics. Now, when you go to Bryan, I don't see any whites, and all I saw was blacks and Hispanics. Going back to what I was just saying, direct competition between those two groups. And all of the whites seem to have moved out to College Station, which is where Texas A&M is, the George Bush Library and all that stuff. So you have a white city, a largely white city with probably a lot of Hispanics and a few blacks. And then you have a largely black and Hispanic city that's doing terribly economically, as far as I could tell. I was riding around Bryan. It was like, oh my, yeah, looked like some kind of money bomb went off and sucked all the money and development out of the area. A reverse money bomb, you know what I'm saying? You go to College Station, it's vibrant. It's a Q-tip. It's a vibrant thing. You know what I'm saying? You realize that's a consequence. Most likely, I'm sure you could trace it back and be like, oh, well. Illegal, influx of illegal people coming into the country illegally. So anyway, that was my alien encounter deep in the heart of Texas. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you found it interesting, learned a couple things. Sure felt good for me to get it off my chest because, like I said, it was quite frustrating at the time. I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in to the North Star Podcast, episode 10. And I want to bid you 2 digits.